It's official. The FDA has approved the Pfizer vaccine. And there's still a holiday coupon code down below for the amazing courses. Hey everyone, me Kevin here with the latest on stimulus as of late on Friday, December 11th. So the Supreme Court rejected a lawsuit by Texas to throw out the election results in 4 battleground states because the Supreme Court said that Texas didn't have standing or the right to sue, that this burden should be brought up by the actual states where those issues may have occurred. Why this relates to stimulus, is because it threatens to embolden Donald Trump to veto the National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed by both the House and the Senate this week. That's because Trump demanded that Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act be ended, and neither the House or the Senate included the ending of Section 230. Now remember that Section 230 gives Twitter, for example, protections, legal protections, despite Twitter being able to censor or flag information as potentially misleading, which Trump is often a victim of. With this Supreme Court decision, which granted it only has to do with this one lawsuit from Texas and not the other multiple pending Trump lawsuits, Trump may be emboldened to veto the NDAA, trying to force Congress to cancel or end Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, because with that section vetoed, Trump sees himself as being more capable to run again in 2024 without the intervention of big tech. Now, what does this have to do with stimulus? Well, the thing is, if Trump issues a veto, then that sends Congress into overdrive to prevent the military from shutting down. And even though we would still have a military, people would just go without pay. Mitch McConnell says, hey, we can't hamper our military and not pass this spending bill. Let's pass the spending bill. If it ends up getting vetoed, because they did pass it, if it gets vetoed, then what happens? Well, Congress goes into overdrive to try to fix the bill to make it something that Donald Trump would actually pass. This is a problem because we've only got 5 working days left before the December 18th government shutdown deadline and stimulus negotiation deadline, which those two are intertwined. Now, both the House and Senate and President will be signing off on the stopgap bill that was passed this week, extending the government's budget for 1 week, allowing for this negotiation to continue next week. This is going to make next week quite intense, and I'm expecting substantial stock market volatility. Mitt Romney today spoke on stimulus and mentioned that both sides have officially agreed on approximately $750 billion in stimulus relief. That an entire set of $750 billion is agreed upon by both sides. And this is basically accomplished by removing $160 billion in state and local government funding from either the $908 billion package with $600 per week in unemployment pay for 16 weeks, or the $916 billion bill with stimulus checks of $600 to the same qualifying adults as last time, and children 17 and younger with matching $600 checks. Now, the good news is there is a lot of support for stimulus checks. We've even heard Senator John Thune, the third-ranking Republican in the Senate, say there is support for either $600 checks or $1,200 checks. The bigger issue is just the state and local issue and liability protections. Now, even though Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are opposed to passing a bill like Romney suggested, potentially without state and local government funding and potentially without liability protections, it is entirely possible that Congress might say, you know what? Let's just get together, pass the $750 billion in stimulus, skip the liability protections and state and local government funding for the future. Now, this would leave states and local governments in a lurch and create some complications for COVID lawsuits, though there aren't as many COVID lawsuits as we were really expecting. Research shows that maybe we're seeing about 4 to 5 COVID lawsuits per state. But either way, it would at least get eviction protections extended. It would provide rental relief. It would sort of eliminate the eviction crisis for the time being. It would support unemployment in either package because even, without the unemployment boost, you would still get extended state unemployment. And it would help fund vaccine distribution, which is actually a separate line item we found out in the last proposal. In fact, if we jump on over, we'll be able to see here this outlined proposal. And so what we'll see here, because we previously thought this was all lumped in together. See, here's the $160 billion for state and local government funding right up here. But if we actually jump on over to the third page, right here we can see we've got $3.4 billion going to grants for state and local governments for tracking systems, and then we've got another $2.54 billion for vaccine distribution and infrastructure. So in theory, we would be able to get vaccines distributed with a $750 billion stimulus package without that additional state and local government funding and those liability protections. That maybe that discussion would be something to pick up in the future. Now, would or could Congress potentially, if we got rid of state and local government funding and we got rid of the unemployment pay, could the government say, hey, let's add in larger stimulus checks? Possibly. In fact, we had Senator John Thune mention that larger stimulus checks of about $1,200 would cost about an additional $350 billion per his estimate if we entered those in. So if we took the $908 billion proposal, for example, added about $350 billion the way and to this, so the people that they want to give these checks to, which seems like it would be a little larger of an amount of people than last time, that would get us to about $1.25 trillion. But if we take out the $160 billion for state and local governments, that takes us to a $1.1 trillion deal. And that was Senator John Thune suggesting that, hey, if something comes out, maybe something else could go in. Now, that's just a small hope right now. No guarantees that we would actually expect to see any kind of real stimulus checks. But the reality is, if state and local government and liability funding is removed and all sides agree, well, then we have a deal. We're very, very close to a deal if we just remove those two thorns, so to speak. Now, of course, we've heard that we've been close to a deal for a long time, so we can knock on wood, but we can't hold our breath. Now, there's also a suggestion that Steve Mnuchin might be able to U-turn and basically just say, hey, let's just set up the municipal lending facility again and let local governments basically raise debt by selling bonds. This program was super underused before, but without state and local government funding, states might realize, crap, we're not getting bailed out. Let's just raise debt. And maybe that would be a way to pump liquidity into these states from the Federal Reserve. And you just wouldn't have to do liability protections, and you just wouldn't have to deal with the state and local government funding for now, and it gets us a deal done. So these are some paths to potentially getting a deal done, doing a smaller package, cutting some things out, trying to solve some things another way. Maybe it would be a path to having stimulus checks and unemployment. The reality is, almost all economists are in favor of doing stimulus checks. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin is in favor of checks. Trump is in favor of checks. Democrats are in favor of checks. That's not so much the issue. The big issues here are riding on the state and local pay and liability protections. Now, Wall Street is really sort of teetering on a determination as to whether or not stimulus will actually be coming, though much of Wall Street seems to just be pricing in that stimulus will come sometime in the first quarter of 2021, which honestly I would certainly hope so, because even if we pass a package now, we're not going to get stimulus until the first quarter, until January. But the first quarter's long, right? The first quarter ends March 31st. So hopefully when we say, yay, stimulus is coming, hopefully it's January and not any later. That means we have to get a bill passed pretty soon here. So where do we realistically stand right now? Well, Congress promises to work over the weekend and get an agreement done, but we've literally heard that they would work on an agreement over the weekend for the last 7.5 months, so I'm not holding my breath here. Next week, though, we'll find out if Congress pushes us to the brink and tries to negotiate this stimulus package through Christmas, or if they'll actually get something done. On COVID, I do want to mention that yesterday we had 225,572 COVID cases and 2,923 deaths. There you have the update. If you liked it, consider getting 4 free stocks with Webull. Deposit $100, get 4 free stocks worth up to $1,600, and get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes in the links down below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.